attest that food and how to cook it is an essential and exciting part of life. In this segment of the Literary Festival, I'm excited to introduce you to Monica Bhide. She is foremost a storyteller, whether it is about food, love, life, or culture. Her books include Karma, the art of the butter chicken, which she'll be talking about today, The Soul Catcher, the Indian cookbook, The Devil in Us, I See You, The Spice is Right, just to name a few. She hosts a podcast called Powered by Hope about staying centered during chaotic times and has over 13 podcasts to listen on various subjects such as feeling alone, the belief, the daffodil principle, the secret ingredient, and many more. She was featured in NPR and Kojo Nambi show, as well as many book clubs like Les Dames DC and book clubs in Long Island, New York, Whole Foods in Maryland, Baskin Ridge, New Jersey, and many others. Her book, Karma and the Art of Butter Chicken, was picked by the American University to be read and analyzed. She is one of Mashable's top 10 food writers on Twitter. I'm sure you'll find many things in her stories to inspire you to enjoy, whether it is cooking, writing, or storytelling. And our moderator today is Neerja Tripathi. Neerja Tripathi is a blogger, podcaster, and author of a book of poetry. She holds a master's degree in medieval history and is currently based in Maryland, USA, medieval Indian history, where she lives with her husband. Neerja has a podcast named Slice of History, where she shares stories and insights about different historical events and personalities. She has been active in the online space for some time, creating content on various topics related to her interests, including history, culture, and social issues. In 2017, she published her book of Hindi poetry. Take it away, Neerja. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is it on? Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Monica, for coming here. Monica, you are an engineer, and you have written so many books. You have appeared on countless radio shows, TV shows. You have written for magazines. How did this journey start? What inspired you to become a writer? Tell us something about it.
Great, thank you. First of all, thank you everyone for having me. It's a huge honor to be here. So for those of you who understand the Indian Bollywood reference, I am one of the 3 idiots who got an engineering degree. As a child, I wanted to write. I think ever since I can remember, I wanted to be a writer since I was about 5 years old. But I was raised in a very traditional, very conservative Punjabi family. And at the age of 17, 18, the choices were, become doctor, lawyer, engineer, or marry rich. No plans to marry rich. I got a degree in engineering, which is something my father wanted for me. He was an engineer himself from Bits Pilani. And he always said to me, I want to raise you in such a way that you're never dependent on anyone. You need to be independent. So I have 2 master's degrees on top of that. But it was one of those things that it was great, it paid the bills. I came here, I lived the American dream. I had the 6-figure job. I worked for Ernst & Young. I had all of that, but there was never a day where I would wake up in the morning and say, leadership training, let's go. It was like, I gotta do this. It pays my bills and be grateful for it, But life is rarely the way you plan it. I always feel like, that old saying of man plans and God laughs. Yeah. And I remember when I was 35 years old, I had a very, very close friend in Cleveland, Ohio. She was German. And I used to always tell her, I'm going to write someday. I'm going to write. And she said, when? And I said, when I retire. And she was an attorney who had given up practicing law to help the homeless in Cleveland. And she used to say, you should do it now. How do you know you're going to be around? And I was like, come on now. Everybody does this. You do this. You earn your living. You take care of your family. You then go do what you want. One day I get a call from Beth's husband. Her name was Beth, my friend. She was outside her house at the age of 35, rollerblading with her son, just outside the doorstep. Took a nasty fall, fell, hit her head, and passed away. Suddenly, the whole world changed. And talk about an existential crisis. It's like, do we really have time? And what does it mean? And if you're not true to yourself, who are you going to be for your children if you don't show up as who you are? So I left my 6-figure job, came home, and did the one thing that I had always been very terrified of. I wrote my own obituary. And I wanted to see, what did I want to be remembered as? You know, of course, a good parent, a good daughter, all of that is for everyone, but what was really my purpose on earth? And it was to tell stories. So, very long answer to your very short question.
That's a lovely answer.
But writers have no mute button. You literally have to say, enough, aage chalo.
No, it was lovely and beautifully explained. So, you know, you started as a food writer.
Yes.
I mean, it feels like just yesterday I was reviewing Spices Right? But then you made this slight detour to fiction writing. So how did that come about? How did that jump come about that you went from a fated, acclaimed food writer to a fiction writer?
So when I explain it, it's going to sound like I planned all of this. I planned none of it. So I wanted to be a novelist when I started. So I quit my job, you know, and then I did what any self-respecting person in America would have done at that time. I went and read Oprah. And I thought, please inspire me. Tell me, how do I wake up one morning and become a writer? Like, what is the magic? You know, it's like saying, oh, this morning I want to be a movie star or a singer. Like, I have no practice in this. I have no idea what I'm doing. And as it turned out, I was a part of an online community back then called eGullet. Mm-hmm. And I mean, now the internet is crazy. But, you know, back then there were very few communities that focused on things. This one focused on food. And there were food writers like Mark Bittman, Anthony Bourdain, before he became Anthony Bourdain, a whole bunch of very drug-addicted chefs, some of us crazy people who went and constantly, you know, wrote and talked about food. And somebody said to me, you know, you really should think about, you know, write about food. And I was like, the only thing as an engineer that I know about food is that I love to eat. Well, like, that's a start. So I started writing about food. I tried to use my engineering skills. You know, I created an app called an iSpice app where people could learn about spices. I was a columnist for the Washington Post for almost a year, an online columnist for a column on seasonings. And it was wonderful. But then what I realized was people would come for the recipes but stay for the stories. I used to get that so many times that I came looking for, I don't know, butter chicken recipe. But the way you made it with your father reminded me of my home. And, you know, when I made like this challah bread with my great-grandmother, or when I learned how to make this tomato sauce, and it kind of pushed me back into what is it that I really want to do with my life, and it's tell stories, and that's how the fiction started. So it's rooted in food, but...
No, that is lovely, and what a wonderful way to transition from one field to another. You know, for the longest of time, Spices Right was my favorite book of yours. But I must say that Karma and the Art of Butter Chicken is becoming, it's bridging that gap really lickety-split, because I had such a grand time reading it. So I want to talk about that book a little bit with you. So what inspired this book? How did you get an idea for it? Could you share something about it?
For sure. So one of the things, you know, we, many of us come from a country where food is such an important part of our identity and who we are. And I remember growing up as a child, it was always, you know, eat one, feed one in our house, you know. When you ate something, you always made sure that there was additional food to share. And then I came over here, I started writing about food, I started writing about other cultures, and I made a friend by the name of Chef Jose Andres, who wasn't Jose Andres quite yet. He was still in his first restaurant, and he launched my first cookbook a second cookbook in his home, which was called Modern Spice. And he and I were talking about this idea of food and building longer tables, and how all of his work in the area of food, he had already started DC Central Kitchen, and how he was feeding people. And I remember thinking, can one person actually make a difference?
Yeah.
Is it possible that somebody who has no money, no education, no connections, no friends in high places, but wants to stop the starvation that he sees around him. Is it possible? And I'd like to think the answer is yes, given that everything Jose has done over the past 10, 15 years, it's been remarkable and very inspiring.
Yeah.
That's where it came from.
So the idea of the book was inspired from Jose Andrea's journey.
Yes.
And what was the inspiration behind the main character, Ishan?
Yeah. So Ishan's very much a bumbling idiot. And I say that with due respect because I went on Kojo's show. So I used to do a lot of Kojo Namdi, when he did the local show, and he read the book. And on air, he said to me, he said, what do you think of Ishan? And before I could say anything, he said, Ishan reminds me of you. And at the same exact time, I said, he's a bumbling idiot. So you couldn't have timed that better. But I wanted to bring forth a character who's not polished. He's like all of us. He has so many flaws and so many things he wants to do. But how do you do it? How do you go and say, I see a beggar on the street, I want to help him? You yourself have so many shortcomings, so many flaws. And is it a God complex, to think that I could help somebody and actually make a difference? And those are some of the things I wanted to explore with his character, because I feel like if his character was too refined and he knew exactly what he was doing, it would be a documentary, not a novel.
No, I mean, you ended up creating a multi-layered character because, yeah, he is kind of a bumbling idiot. I was reading it with a very dear friend's daughter, and she said, oh my God, the lead character is so annoying. So, yeah, he is kind of a bumbling idiot, but he has layers. First of all, he has this beautiful heart. I mean, it's the thing that speaks to everyone is the heart. And then of course, without giving away the plot of the book, there are nuances, there are secrets, there are things, there are layers. But I want to know about the character of the monk. So what inspired that?
Absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about the context of the story so you know what we're talking about. So Ishan Veer Singh is a young boy whose mother dies of preventable starvation. And he's rescued from his burning home by a group of traveling monks near Delhi. So the book is based in Mehrauli, just outside of Delhi. And in living with these monks, he makes it his life's mission to feed the hungry. Because in feeding the hungry, he's trying to fill that void in his heart of, I could have saved my mother, but she died because there was no food. In a country where food is plenty, I know we see a lot of poverty, but we also see a lot of wealth. And so to this little child, if I could even save one person, I would have saved my mother's memory. Now, the idea of the monk, because I was wandering around the streets of Mehrauli, so as a writer, I do a lot of this. I wander aimlessly a lot in cities because I'm trying to find, the perfect place to set the book, the perfect character to inspire me, the perfect smell to inspire me, which also I'd like to talk about. But I was looking for a place to base karma that had, the richness of our culture, the colors, the sounds, the sights, the philosophy. Now remember, if the lead character is a bumbling idiot, someone's got to show him the way or he's going to falter and fail. So the book is based in a fictional monastery that's in Mehrauli. There is actually a monastery there, and I used to go there every day trying to find the character who could help me with this monk who is in the story. So I went there many, many times in the morning, and I'd sit there and I'd watch this guy, and there's this amazing monk who is the main teacher. It's a teaching monastery, and I wanted to talk to him. But I have never written a novel before in my life. My credentials are that of a journalist. I'm like, is he even going to talk to me? So then I did what every self-respecting Indian writer would do at that time. I went and bribed the guard, the security guard outside. So I give you 500 rupees, tell me which one of them is easy to talk to. And he says, no, Didi, the first one, the lead gentleman, he's very good, he's very kind, you should speak to him. I said, okay, what time? He goes running at 6 in the morning, you come. God.
It's a monk
Delhi,
who runs.
6 in the morning, yeah, the monk runs.
A monk who runs.
I went there 6 o'clock in the morning, and he was there, and he comes to me and he says, I've seen you hanging around here for the past few weeks, what do you want? And I said, I want to talk to you, I'm working on this book. Like, I feel bad, right? These are monks who are teaching and they're saving the world. And I'm like, I have this little story. Can you talk to me? And he said, he listened to me and he said, why do you want to talk to me? And I said, because I need an advisor. I need someone to guide this character. Maybe in essence, and he picked up on this, someone to guide me. And he said, I'm happy to talk to you. So I said, okay, can I get an appointment? And he looked at me and he said, lady, I'm a monk. You don't need an appointment. Let's go inside. So we went and sat, and 3 most beautiful hours of my life. Amazingly inspiring, kind, insightful, empathetic, and very, very direct. And he was the stereotypical monk. I was asking him stupid questions, and he was just smiling at me, like, really? So yeah, I learned a lot. That's where the monk came from.
That is funny. Well, my next question was going to be, how did you research for your book? Because, the atmosphere of Delhi comes out in it, the Nizamuddin area, and beautiful. And then you just told us that you walked the streets. So instead, I will jump on to my next question. NPR did a whole thing about it, and so did American University, and so many other people. And please tell us all about it. That sounds a lot of fun.
So again, this was God's grace in what happened. So when Karma came out, it was almost a movement, I would say, when it released in 2016. There were book clubs everywhere. There was this love of Indian food. And a book that combined food and culture was very interesting. So a lot of book clubs. The book actually comes with a free cookbook. If you go onto my site, you can download it. My beautiful friend Donna's daughter, graphic artist, actually created the cookbook. And so people were coming together not only to enjoy reading the book, but to bring some of the tastes and the sounds into the book, which came through the cookbook. So I got a call from NPR, the corporate headquarters here, and they said, hey, listen, we have a question for you. What if Ishan came to life? What would he cook? How would he serve this food? And I'm thinking, your radio show? Like, you want to talk about cooking, okay? So we had a discussion, and they converted their cafeteria into Monica Bhide / Karma Day. They cooked all the dishes they thought Ishan would cook. And I was invited to give away my books and to talk to all of the talent. And it was surreal to have Ari Shapiro come down and hold the book and eat butter chicken. It was like I was on some other planet. And then the National Press Club did the same. The thing that they added was, of course, alcohol, because they were not working.
How about soup? Was there soup?
There was soup. There was a lot of alcohol. And there was a lot of discussion. Again, you talk about, like, for instance, Nizamuddin coming to life, right? How did that come to life? So there is a scene in the book where Ishan, the lead character, is walking the streets of Nizamuddin. He's trying to help people. There's a lot of poverty in parts of that area. And he wants to feed them. So in Nizamuddin, you can go and buy a food ticket for like 100 rupees, which is hardly like $2, and you can feed so many people.
Yeah.
Now that was a character. The naive me was standing over there, and these are little children, and I'm a mom of 2. So I'm looking at them. I'm with a guide who's taken me through Nizamuddin, and I was getting very emotional, and I said to him, it's hard to see children beg. And he looked at me and he said, how many degrees do you have again? And I said, 3. And he said, for somebody who has 3 degrees, you're very naive. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, these children are brave. They're begging in your face. Come with me to Nizamuddin Aulia's mosque, and I will show you every wealthy person begging in private to God. And I tell you, you can't make that up. I mean, I cried the entire way there. I cried the entire way back. And it's been a learning. And same thing when American University called, they made it a reading for their younger students in their freshman year journalism. And it was remarkable because I walked into it and you can see like the kids are from everywhere. And the assignment was take the book and cast it as a romance, cast it as a documentary, look at it as a thriller, tell us who the characters would be. And I was very happy to see, Shah Rukh Khan and Hrithik Roshan show up in my book. These kids went and researched and decided the way it was going to be. These are older kids. And then there are younger kids in Virginia who took the book, they're little dancers, and they created a whole dance around Ishan. Like, I never imagined when I wrote this bumbling idiot character that people would do this.
That must feel very fulfilling. That's a great feeling to have, isn't it?
Lot of gratitude, lot of gratitude. Like I said, man plans and God laughs. You never know where life takes you.
So what would you like people to take away from Karma and the Art of Butter Chicken? What do you think people, when they read it, and what feeling, what lesson, what gist should they come out with?
I was going to say gratitude for all we have, but actually that's not it. I think humility.
Humility.
We've been given a lot. We take a lot for granted. And then when you go and see the people and see their struggles, it's like for me that 1 minute of saying, just stop here and see how you can help.
Yeah.
And one person can make a difference. I think if anyone takes away, that's it. No hunger, no more. We are a country that is so blessed with such a rich heritage and so much intelligence, so much food, so many resources, which was, obvious during COVID.
Yeah.
All the people who came together to feed everybody during the time of COVID, everywhere, not just in India, was remarkable. But it had to start with one person saying, I'm going to do this. There's, I think, an old Urdu saying of "Hum akele chalte rahe aur karwa banta gaya."
Yeah.
I walked by myself and people just joined in. And I think that's what I'd like people to take away.
Well, that's beautiful. That was beautiful. So, coming away from Karma for a bit, tell us about any future projects you have been doing.
So I have this very strange obsession with George Clooney, and if you're recording this, my kids are going to kill me because I just said that out loud.
No, aren't we all? Don't we all? Yes.
We're working on an international romantic story about finding love in your middle ages. Because I feel like there is a lot out there about people who find love when they're young, which is true. You're 21, 22, beautiful and hormonal, and you can find the love of your life. But again, for the Shah Rukh Khan lovers here, what happens to those who don't find their Raj or their Simran, or find them and lose them? There are people like my friend who passed away at 35. What happens to her spouse? Is there this whole idea of just one soulmate, or are there many soulmates? Is it timing? Is it giving yourself another chance? We hold ourselves to such rigid standards of society sometimes that, you have to be born, get your education, get married, have children, work, take care of your kids, old age, and die. What if you decide, I don't want to do any of that? Can I get a second chance at 50?
Yeah.
Can I get a second chance at 75? And it's hard. It's hard in the culture because I go back, I'm a single mom of 50-something. And I visit sometimes old relatives, and it literally is a conversation of, have you talked to children about your will? Really? Already? Like, I'm just getting started. And they're like, no, but you're of a certain age. It's a stereotype to break. It's not fair to the children, to the parents, to everybody.
I agree.
It's all about me, can you tell?
No, I look forward to reading that book though. But, Monica is also a writing coach. She has been one for quite some time now. As a writing coach, and this is a question that's coming from a very dear friend, so I'm posing her question to you. What do you say to those of us who have been busy with their children, with their lives, and they suddenly find themselves in this age, 50 something?
Yeah, I know. That works every time.
So, if they want to start now, what's your word of wisdom, word of advice to them? Is it even worth starting at that time? Is it worth giving it a chance, or is it too late for them? Or if they want to go about it, how?
I think that's an excellent question. I get that from almost every single writing student I've coached. I have two types of people who come to me. Some people who really want to write, and the other people who really want to be famous. So, I want to write something Oprah is going to love. The first step, in whichever box you lie, is that you have to write. So, if you it's like with any art, right? You want to sing, you want to write, you want to paint, you want to dance, you want to do anything. You want to create a fashion line, you want to create jewelry, anything that you want to do. Trust your heart. Trust your heart. If it says this is the time to do it, this is the time to do it. There is no right time or wrong time. But the guidance cannot come from outside. It cannot come from anywhere. And my students make fun of me because maybe I'm old-fashioned in this way. I will make them meditate. Close your eyes, listen to what your heart is saying, listen to what it's telling you to do. It will never guide you wrong. Journal. And then you'll wake up one morning and you'll be like, I can't wait to tell this story. I can't wait to paint this. It doesn't matter if anyone is going to read it, look at it, enjoy it. If you're really doing it from your heart, that will be the happiest moment of your life. And all those moments combined make a lifetime. Yeah. And who doesn't want to have a happy lifetime?
And if it was not clear to anybody listening to this that she is a poet, let me tell you that this lady is a poet. And as anybody who has read this book, Karma, will know that she's a poet. I would love for you to read my favorite poem from there.
Sure.
That's, you interspersed throughout the book, you will find these beautiful little poems. It's such a treat. So after that, we will open the floor for some questions. So anybody who wants to ask a question.
Thank you. So before I read anything, let me tell you how the poetry came to be in the book. Because having a writer, you always get to hear the behind the scenes things that we don't really tell anybody else, and then you can confess now because the book is done. So I finished writing the novel, it was done, it was edited, it took many years, as you can imagine, lots of research, travel, this, that, everything's done, and I was like, it's done now, I'm good. I have one more person who needs to read it, it's a very trusted friend of mine, let her read it, we'll be done. This was on a Friday afternoon. She's a writer, writers read very fast. Send it to her at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The evening she calls me, we need to talk. Okay, that's worse than your spouse coming up with, we need to talk. I was like, oh my God, it's taken me 6 years to get here. What do you mean we need to talk? And she said, I read the book, but where is Ishan? I said, Ishan is on every page. What do you mean, where is Ishan? She said, Monica, I can see inside every character. I know what they're thinking. I know what they're doing. You're hiding Ishan from us. And I said, I am not hiding him. And this is the time where you're like, is this autobiographical? Like, am I like messing with my own head here? And she said, you need to rework this because this is not ready for prime time. I didn't know what to do. I was devastated. Everything was due on Tuesday. Oh. This is Friday afternoon. And so I went for a walk, stopped panicking. What should I do? How do you get to know a person really? If you don't know them, like there's somebody, you want to really get to know them, you don't know anything about them, what do you think would be really telling? And I thought, his diary. If Ishan has a diary, we'd know about him. So I went back and I wrote his diary, which was his poetry journal. So I rewrote the entire book in poetry, went back and inserted it in various places, and hence was born Ishan the poet, because Monica the writer was useless.
No, she was not.
That's what happened.
She is multi-talented.
You have to know. Otherwise, you're like, oh, it's just poetry in a book. What's the big deal? The big deal was it almost didn't get published. So this is Ishan Veer Singh's journal. This is the first piece of poetry that if you read the book, you will read. It says, death is cheap in my town. Life is cheaper. I stare outside my window, the rotting livestock, the stray dogs covered in blood, the failings of my father, the faults of my fate. The sun burns the earth eats its own, paradise or abyss. It is both, I'm told. She is dying, no shroud, no fire, no sandalwood for her pyre. Hers was deemed an inconsequential life. I stare out my window as the rain begins. Each drop embraces the earth as it begs for less pain. She dies as she lived, quiet and frail, nothing owned, nothing gained. I look out my window, the rain is gone, the earth, it smells like hope again, an illusion or truth, only time will tell. Her pyre still burns inside my heart's hell. This was the memory of the child who watched his mother die.
It's seriously, it took me unawares when I started reading the book, and it stayed with me, that poem. And it incidentally, it also answers this question, the favorite scent. It's petrichor, isn't it? It's petrichor. People look it up. And I am going to now open the floor for questions. If anybody has a question for Monica, please feel free to ask.
Yes.
So, Monica, you said you always wanted to write. Why? What gives you that sense of fulfillment? What is driving you?
I think for me, it was a way to understand the world. It never seemed black and white to me. It always seemed gray. And when I couldn't figure things out, that's what I did. I went in and told stories to try to make myself understand and find connection with the outside world. I think it's a thing with writers, we always feel like we live either on the outskirts of life or right in the middle of the chaos of it all. There's no balance. So trying to understand that, I think for me, that's what it was. Oh, tremendously. Tremendously. I mean, I've actually have 2 living children that I haven't killed, which is amazing. Because I'm crazy. No, I'm teasing. But you know what I mean? It gives you a way to filter out your emotions. It gives you a way to find the path forward when there feels like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
It gives you hope.
Yeah, it does. Yes, please.
So in your Clooney-inspired novel, are you replacing Amal or supplanting her with yourself? How is that?
I actually think Clooney's biggest blessing is Amal. So I will leave it at that.
Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am.
How much of your work is biographical?
So I did a lot of food writing, which was all obviously nonfiction. But I find like when I write fiction, there is a lot of me in a lot of it. So for instance, the newest novel that came out, and you can see it outside, and there's some copies in here as well, it's called The Soul Catcher. It's about a woman who could take the dying breath of a person and give it to someone who needs life. That is not autobiographical.
Right.
But I got the information from, I was driving one night and there was an NPR story on the radio about Edison's dying breath and how his son captured that dying breath, and it's in a museum somewhere in Philadelphia. And I thought, who's going to open that bottle? But if you did, is there anything in there? They say when someone dies, the body is lighter by like 20 ounces or something. Is that the soul? Is there any such thing? So I explore a lot of the things that I wonder about, but not necessarily all about me. So, yeah.
I just want to say I'm very inspired about the journey you've taken, and
Thank you.
I'm thinking along those lines as well. So you're inspiring me, and I'm sure a lot of people. And it seems like you've found your passion, and you've obviously been busy doing that. Is that something you can? This is your full-time thing that you do, or are you doing anything else? Or?
So, first of all, I'm so glad, and if you're inspired, please take it with you and start writing. I always say you can't edit a blank page. Mm-hmm. So just start, even if it's like really bad, and you can just curse me in the first few sentences and say, I hate this woman, she told me to write, I don't know what to write. Just keep going, the story will come. What we do is we have it all in our head and we never put it down, whether it's painting or dancing or anything. Just start where you are and it'll come. As far as my story, I quit my job, as I was saying earlier, to start writing full time. And by the time Karma came out in 2016, I think I had about 10 books out. But then the universe said, hey, you over there, you look like you're getting way too comfortable, so slap you around a little bit. Unfortunately, there was a medical and financial crisis in my home. My then husband fell very ill. He has recovered. and is fine, but the marriage ended. And so here I was again at the age of something, starting all over again. And one of the very crucial things in life is health insurance.
Yeah.
And it's hard as an independent person to have that. So I joined this wonderful tech company. I work for Cognizant. And in the daytime, I have the privilege and honor of telling their stories and how they're changing lives and businesses around the world, and health insurance. And I write by night. And somebody asked me how you do that. Well, I have no life. So I write in the day and I write at night. Just the two masters I serve are different, that's all.
But you're going to ask a question.
So you have written a variety of different things that are really good and all encouraging, but they seem to be in very different styles. For instance, the Devil in Us,
Yes.
sort of this dark side, which sort of counters karma. You seem like you're really comfortable dealing with both the dark and the light, and no matter which one you're talking about, you encourage people by that. And so I'm just kind of curious how you are able to so fluidly transition.
It's kind of like life, right? There's really bad stuff and really good stuff, and you sort of learn to go with it. The book she's referring to is the first collection that I ever wrote called The Devil in Us. It came out in 2014, I think. With God's grace, it was blurred by Chitra Banerjee, who has always been my idol. Her Mistress of Spices actually started me down this poetic writing path. But I wouldn't necessarily say that the book was dark, in that it's not about, like, you know, the serial killer going around slicing people's heads off. It's about the part of us that we try to hide. I'll give you an example. There is a story in that book about this woman who lives in Bethesda, ironically, married to a Jewish doctor. Indian woman married to a Jewish doctor. Okay. I mean, there's nothing, okay, great, Monica, now what? And she's nasty to him. She's just nasty. She's a nasty human being. She's a narcissist. She only cares about herself. She only wants to do what's right for her, and she's really mean to her husband. So, a little dark, right? So I wrote the book. Now, what happens with these books is, before they go out to the public, we have what's called a set of beta readers who will read the book without the name of the author, right? So we send it to them and say, what do you think? Is this a piece of garbage, or should we look at sending it out? Okay, so the reader who read that story called my assistant and said, I need the author on the phone now. And I thought, what did I do? And I didn't want to get on the phone with her. And they're like, you know, if you're going to write it, you're going to own it. So come on now. So I get on the phone. She gets on the phone. She's so angry. And she's like, how could you write this? Do you realize what this woman is doing to him? He is such a nice man, and he's helping her and her family, and he's, you know, taking care of their daughters. How could you do this? She kept going on and on and on, and I'm like panicking at this point, and I said, you do realize this is fiction. And a friend of mine who was sitting with me that day said, this is getting under her skin. Ask her why. And okay, so, you know, ego sit down for a second, and I was like, is everything okay? Like, what's wrong? And she said, I am very angry because my aunt is like this and I don't know how to fix the situation. My problem with your story is that it doesn't tell us how to fix it. Oh. You're showing it to me, I see it. How do I fix it? That's the dark part.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, and then, you know, that's the limitation of a storyteller. We can tell a story. We don't know how that story will end for each different scenario, for each different
100%. I
individual.
think it's like any piece of art, right? Movies, songs, anything. Once you put it out,
Yeah.
it's no longer yours.
Yeah, no,
I could listen to a song and say, oh my God, this is so beautiful. It reminds me of a romantic time in college. And somebody else could listen to it and say, it's because of this damn song I failed my electrical engineering program, because that's what I was doing while I was supposed to be studying. So you have no idea how things affect people, but it becomes their own. That's the hard thing, is the letting go. Letting go of karma, having these university students pick it apart and say the lead character should be so-and-so. But in my mind, Ishan looks very different. But in their mind, he looks different.
Yeah.
The same thing for the National Press Club calling and saying, so the National Press Club, their lead chef is a wonderful woman who was also an engineer, and said, I interpret that the food will look like this. And it was like, yeah, but. And then I had to stop at that, yeah, but. Because she's right. Whatever she thinks it's going to look like is what she took away from it. The story is not mine to own anymore. This is her story.
Yeah, very, very true. So does anyone else have a question? Otherwise, I will, oh, absolutely.
So picking up Don's question and someone's who talked about your story. Advice to writers is write what you know, right? So obviously you haven't been in Ishan's shoes, you haven't been like this lady who married a Jewish doctor. But there's some part of you that, what part do you reach? How do writers apply that thing about write what you know?
That's actually an excellent question.
That's an
and it's
excellent
usually
question,
about,
yes.
It's about curiosity. It's like write about what you want to know. I actually don't say write about what you know. It's more about write about what you want to learn about. And I don't know anything about anything. Because for everything that I think is true, there's something else that'll like be in the face of that and you can't even imagine. You know, I'll give you an example. So we all think we know what happens in a monastery. There's a group of monks, they are very holy, they pray for the world, they teach. It's all great. What I don't know, when I went into the monastery, I sat in the back. There are areas where you can sit and then there's people doing prostrations and praying and stuff like that. And then they have an altar where people come and give gifts, right? Just like in any mandir where you come and give a donation. I'm watching what's happening over there. And there's people dropping off bottles of Johnny Walker. There's old monk rum. There's potato chips. God, there was so much chocolate. And I'm like, what is happening? Because I know the monks don't eat this. They don't drink. I'm like, what is going on? So at the end of these few days, I kept an eye on it. And so when I finally was talking to this gentleman, I was like, can you explain to me what's happening at the altar? And he said, oh, that. We tell people to donate what they love. So much Johnny Walker. And very happy neighbors. Because they don't drink. So every other day there's boxes of food going out, boxes of alcohol going out. But I would never know that. You have to learn. I think the number one thing for any artist who wants to succeed, or at least wants to learn, I don't even say wants to succeed, wants to learn, is curiosity. Question everything you see.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll give you one more example. I don't know if I have time.
You have all the time in the world.
I also have no mute button, as you will soon realize. So one of the things about karma was the scent that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So here is a young man, he wants to feed everybody. Okay, very good. How do I make this character different than any other character that wants to feed somebody or wants to do something that's wonderful for people, right? So I'm walking around the old streets of Chandni Chowk, looking for some connection. So my family, my father's family, all used to have shops in Chandni Chowk. You know, right after the partition, that's where they moved. I couldn't find anything, so randomly going into stores, looking at spice stores, too predictable, something to do with food. Going into places where they're serving food, like kebabs. I mean, I went to like Galib Ki Haveli and this and that. I ate very well. I didn't have what I was looking for. Finally, there's an older guy who sees me wandering around the thing like I'm homeless, and he says, what do you want? And I said, so I have this book. Not even a book, I have this idea. And there's this guy, and he loves food, and he wants to feed people, and he wants to do all this. I need sort of a reference that connects him to food, but I don't want it to be food. He said, I know just the place. Can you imagine? Like, this is real. He takes me into this shop where they're selling itra, which is scent, right? They're selling itra. And he goes and he explains this to this gentleman, and he's like, I have just the thing for you. But first you must buy something. Of of course. So he takes out all his homemade scents where you like Chanel No. 5, here you go. You like Christian Dior, here you go. You like Poison, here you go. So he has all these scents that he's selling. I buy some stuff and things, and I'm thinking, this is a complete waste of my time. I need to leave. And he says, Ruko, wait. And he says, tell me something. Close your eyes. This is a boy who loves to feed people. Yes. Go back. Think about it. What does he love? He loves the times with his father and his mother. What did his father do? Oh, his father was a farmer. His father was a farmer and his mother died of lack of food. That's terrible. So yes, that's why he's bruised. Think about it. Go back. What do you think his father said to him when he was a child in the farms? And I'm like, Arey, he's walking in the farms, he's looking at vegetables. He's like, think, Monica, think, go back. You're in a scent shop. What did he smell? Sondha. Sondha. The smell of the earth after the first rain. That's what the farmers love. It tells them that their plants are going to come to life. It tells them that they can feed their family. So the scent in the book, which he gave me, is Sondha, petrichor, the smell of the earth after the rain.
Lovely. That is just love. Okay, just this one last question and then we must, please go ahead.
Yes, please.
So
Yes, ma'am.
Monica, I'm sorry to say I haven't read any of your books.
That's all right.
I found this storytelling so interesting that maybe now I'll pick up a book of yours and recommend it to my book club.
I would be most grateful. Thank you so much. That is very kind. Thank you.
If you're with the book club, do you actually come there or?
I do. So I've done a lot of book clubs. I've done, during COVID, I did more virtual book clubs than I care to remember. I look awful on Zoom. I prefer to come in person. Then I can also eat, which is very important. But yes, I love coming to book clubs. I love having people bring in their own stories, their own food, their own way of connecting. That's how the community grows, you know. That's how we take the message across. Yeah.
We're coming to the next one.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say the last thing you said was very interesting because of Alka Joshi's latest book. Because it's the same.
It's the book on scents, is it? Yeah, I haven't read it.
And then the main character goes to India to find that one missing ingredient.
Yeah.
And that missing ingredient is exactly what
It's a scent?
Petrichor?
it's.
Petrichor, okay.
Okay.
Oh, how lovely is that? See?
It's lovely, but this is the thing, right? This is what ties us, what binds us together is much more common than what we think it is. I mean, Karma came out in, 2016, so I was researching this from 2013, 2014. I mean, look, we're 10 years later.
Yeah, this
10
is.
years later. And it's still so important. Even now, right? This coffee makes me feel like I was in, I don't know, Florence one morning when I woke up and this coffee smells like that, or this bread smells like that. This naan smells like the thing.
Yeah,
Always. Scents
smell
are
is the
so
strongest.
powerful.
Yeah, strongest.
So as a writer, always focus on the 5 senses when you're writing. People tend to focus mostly on what they can see. But what can you hear? What can you smell? What can you touch? Very important.